Hello there guys, it's Joey, and today we're going to be talking about lions in spirituality. So this has been something that I have been working through or toward for a little while, and some of it I was quite aware of and some of it I wasn't. And we're going to talk about the lion as a symbol, as an energy, and all that sort of thing. But I thought we'd start off briefly mentioning some of the universal pokes, I guess you could call it, about working with this image, this symbolism, these particular tarot cards. And the copal incense really is going for it, so that's interesting. There you go. You're all being cleansed as we go, me included. So, on the full moon, this next full moon coming up is full moon in Leo. Additionally, what really kicked it off in my mind is this labradorite here. I don't know if we're going to get... Yeah, you can. Okay, you can get the gold shimmer. This labradorite calls himself Lion, and I've never had such a overwhelming experience with any particular crystal that I can think of. I've worked with crystals, I've connected with crystals, I've formed relationships with crystals. This one not only sort of demanded to be took home, but the first night I had it in the house, I placed it on a working space and thought no more of it and went to bed. And as I shut my eyes, I was getting flashes of this crystal, of the patterns on this crystal, until I got up, picked it up and took it to bed with me. So there's all these sort of lion-esque images were coming up as well, and it felt that the lion energy was what needed to be interacted with on the first step of the transformation. So this is in its own way an introduction into the transformational work that I'm going to be doing personally and I'm going to be sharing. So if it's something that you are interested in, it's something that you can then adapt and tweak and look at yourself. All the other crystals within will be explained in a little while. But the main thread of where this began for me, apart from the crystal, is that I was feeling that the strength and courage from the lion energy, from the strength card in particular, was going to be something necessary for walking into personal transformation. I was also thinking about how odd it was. I was just having one of those moments about how associated with the lion England is. And according at least to BBC Nature, there have been no natural lions in the UK for 12 to 14,000 years. They died out around the same time as the woolly mammoth and the Neanderthals, probably due to climate change. However, within history, within human history, in the UK, in England, and even in the Celtic pantheons, there is a strong image connected with lion symbolism all the way through. One of the most accepted theories, I guess you could say, at least the one that has the most evidence to back it up, is of the shield, the heraldry of Richard I, known as Lionheart, with his shield of 3 lions, which are said to represent England, Normandy and Aquitaine, which were associated with the English crown. There is a lot of history around this particular subject, and there are people that debate this, and there are questions about if he did it, there's something to do with raising money, and his younger brother had 2 lions, and it was like going down a notch, and yeah, there's enough on that to make a whole video, and I only really wanted to touch on the subject because obviously we're going to be talking about it in terms of spirituality rather than just history. It is theorised by the Herald Society that the schedule is actually a lot older than Richard I, but there isn't concrete evidence to back it up within heraldry at least. And then of course it goes into the royal coat of arms as well. But what we should take from that primarily, I guess, is the sense of sovereignty, it being associated with the royal, particularly conquering, warrior-esque lineages, and the association that we have in our mind of it being king of the jungle. Is this for mysticism, Copal? I mean, go for it, why not? Okay, so symbolically, looking at a modern interpretation of lions, which I thought was the interesting step to go from what we sort of see in history a little bit to what the sort of modern interpretation of lions is. Primarily strength, and obviously it's associated with the strength card in not all but most tarot deck imagery. 2 examples here being the Mariel Tarot and the Wild Unknown, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. Interestingly enough, lions are nocturnal animals, so they can be associated as a symbol of authority and command over your subconscious thought as well as the realm of dreaming. However, it's considered by many ancient cultures to be a solar animal, although often the lioness is given as a lunar animal. This can be seen to serve as a symbol of balance and sound judgment, even mind. I wonder here whether or not there is a meshing of the modern inclination to give sort of godlike masculine energy a solar influx and the female deity a lunar association, and whether this clouds the subject or not. It's interesting that, to me at least, that you can therefore make arguments about lions having lunar and solar energy within them, which is something I've been talking about a lot recently. The fact that we seem to pigeonhole deity as being solar or lunar, and in fact it's most likely that they have energies of both, because divinity is sort of outside of the realm of modern sort of stereotyping. I think categorizing may be a better word, and it can be useful in the beginning in terms of correspondences and sort of getting your mind around early concepts, although I did read about, do we need to simplify things to that standard? Are we educating people badly? Because then it's something you have to overcome, the idea that you can only be solar and masculine, and then lunar is only feminine, and then divide and divide and divide. And the whole point is these things aren't divided, they are connected through the web of divinity. Other symbolic meanings attributed to lions include wisdom, power, royalty, dignity, courage, justice, ferocity, dominion, and authority. So, a good example of what I was just talking about is actually from the ancient Egyptian pantheon. And the ancient Egyptian pantheon is one that I find fascinating. It's not something I've ever engaged with on a personal path level, but in terms of history, I've studied it a lot, I enjoy it a lot, and I know people who, and I've known people a long time, who follow particular goddesses, and Sekhmet was one of them. So in ancient Egyptian culture, the goddess Sekhmet was a ferocious heat of the sun, the eye of Ra, who protected the good and annihilates the wicked. And she's one of these very primal, warrior-esque energies. I remember the myth where she goes for carnage, and it's only by drugging the pools of blood that they manage to sedate her. And it's interesting to note here that she is considered a solar goddess, a sun goddess, warrior-esque, and she's a lioness. Whereas previously, in the modern interpretation of things, it's given that most lionesses are considered to be lunar, whereas the masculine is considered to be solar. And so even within this one goddess from a very ancient culture, we see that this balance of masculine and feminine within solar and lunar energies seems to be culturally defined, and this sort of modern practice isn't necessarily one that's come from a historical background. It's something that modern practitioners seem to have put in place. In ancient Greece, lionesses were considered protectors and guardians of the dead, of doorways, of palaces, shrines and thrones, and the ultimate protectors of hearth and home. That can still be seen in modern society. We actually live nearby a gate with two lions on the sort of pedestals, and I grew up near one. At least there was one near my nana's. So for my purposes, I was obviously more interested in Celtic mythology and the fact that there are lions within Celtic mythology. Is it Aryrod? Oh, I've forgotten how you pronounce it. Anyway, the accidental name for Lu was bright lion with a sure hand. Lulorgoifs, I think. Lulorgoifs? I think that's how you say it. And from Celtic symbology, although the lion symbol can be found early among the Celts, it is viewed in Celtic mythology research as similar to the dragon. Noting here, of course, that dragons are also associated with similar themes of sovereignty and power. It represents warrior gathering and appears as coats of arms on Irish clans as well as in literature. Having probably arrived in Europe from the Asian and Egyptian cultures via the Greek culture. The lion and other cats appear in Irish and Welsh epic. The story, for example, of the Duchess of the Fountain, the lion is portrayed as a guardian. Owain saves a white lion from a snake and it becomes his companion and guardian, protecting his life and going into battle with him. Very similar to the whole idea of that is found across cultures with the lion with the thorn and the pole, that a good deed and overcoming fear is the primary message of those sorts of stories, and that the king of the jungle, the king of beasts, as it's often referred to, lions anyway, are often referred to, sort of form a kinship with those who display those same qualities of courage, strength and sovereignty to a degree. So before we go into that in a little more depth, we will discuss some of the crystals and the tarot meanings, and then we will discuss what on earth is going on with this incense. Woo! Mysticism. Okay. So all of the crystals that you see in Chart are actually associated with the energies of Leo, being the astrological sign of the lion. Amber, fire agate, kunzite is in the middle of that sort of mini grid there. Rhodochrosite, boom, 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 and then pink tourmaline, boom, 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 boom. boom, boom. So, I was talking about the fact that my room is crackling at me. I was talking about the fact that all of these crystals were very relevant right now, and the lion energy had sort of been sneaking up on me in a prowly sense. And amber is one of the crystals I had gotten recently and felt drawn to. Pink tourmaline was involved in a lot of the healing work and sort of provides a bridge from healing into courage work, into personal transformation work. Kunzite is one of those crystals that is supposed to be the crystal of the year according to other witchy sources. And rhodochrosite has come up a lot this week in terms of heart healing, and fire agate came up with a friend of mine as a really good crystal for banishing negativity and getting rid of funk. We will pause here and talk a little bit about the idea of the rhodochrosite, because there's been a lot of necessity and energy around right now that to have strength and healing of the heart. This is something which has come from healing work, and I see it around in forms of what people are experiencing, rhodochrosite being shared all over the place right now, in terms of pictures and videos and things of that nature. And I just want to really sort of highlight the point right here of the idea of the lion heart. So we talked about lion heart in terms of Richard I. So if you don't know your English history, then you may or may not know about Richard the Lionheart. He's been in a lot of movies, so he's not obscure. But he was a crusader, and by a lot of historical accounts, not as nice as modern history pretends he is. But the idea of Lionheart is to have a courageous heart, to be brave and courageous within one's own heart, and to not be afraid and to overcome fear. And at the end we're going to talk about the energy of lion and the concepts of lion and the concepts surrounding lion energy. But before we do that, we're going to talk a little bit about the symbology of the lion within our psyches before we get to that point to discuss it within tarot. So within Shot, of course, there is the Wild Unknown and the Mary L, which are two of my favourite strength cards to date. So for the Wild Unknown, the card is associated with the High Priestess and Judgment because they're all associated with do. Strength is actually the 11th card, but then 1 and 1 is 2. Both of which deal with inward aspects and balance. The Wild Unknown Lion is a balance of solar energy up here and then sort of night energy down here. He has a symbol of eternity, universal balance on his forehead, infinite possibility. He's also very gently holding a white rose within his mouth. It's not snapped, there's no ferocity, it's a very gentle image and it's balanced again. There is the argument for the white rose being a symbol of purity and gentleness. However, within recent sort of books I've been reading, I remembered it was a symbol of the other world, the mysteries and hidden secrets. It could also therefore represent lunar energies which have akin themes, and the balance of lunar and solar energy within the card. It talks about perseverance through hard times, as well as the balance of kindness and strength, not rushing into things, and the fact that you will be stronger and strengthened by your experiences. For my part, I think this card talks a lot about the inward strength, and people seem... I was having a read around on different people's feelings on strength cards and rather than mine. People seem to attribute it outwardly, but within this card I feel it has a very personal message of personal inward strength and what personal strength truly is. This card seems to, for me, to balance shadow and light, night and day, solar and lunar. And that's exactly what we were talking about earlier. It's the yin-yang side of things, and the fact that strength, personal strength, real strength, comes from a sense of personal balance and not leaning on one side more than the other. So it could also be a balance of emotion and logic, and the two sides of the self, the shadow self and the light self, and the need for balance in all things. So from the Mary L meaning of her card, which is a beautiful, beautiful symbol of strength. The woman in the strength card is crafting her own soul, the lion, into gold. She is using her own hands to create her destiny. The difference between 11 and 1 is that 1 is innocent and 11 is experienced. 1 is not just born into the world, but has had a hand in creating the reality of this life through choices and actions with the matrix of earthly chaos. Strength is found in doing the work of one's soul, of wielding the great power of one's soul, of doing what is right, and what is right is knowledge that can only come from oneself. What is right, only you can know. Accepting responsibility is easier if you always do what is right, in the way you will be caressing the dangerous mouth of the lion. Knowing what is right comes from knowing one's own soul and trusting in the greatness of it. Numerologically, 11 is associated with 1. It is a return to the beginning, a start of the circle, except this time around 1 has the knowledge of themselves and the world around them. And that sort of ties into the energy of the symbol of divinity within the other card. The coming around of knowing, the symbol of life, death and rebirth, of being reborn, and this is part and parcel of why the lion energy has come up before personal transformation. It's having the courage to dive, to jump, to know, to accept what you and who you are, and find the balance within yourself. And have the courage and strength to see these lessons through. It's interesting when you actually look at quotes surrounding lions and lion imagery associated with quotes about how this balance is brought into sharp relief. Some of the most common quotes associated with lions are as follows: I'd rather live one day as a lion than 100 years as a sheep. Then there is, lions must not concern themselves with the opinions of sheep. And never forget who you are, from the Lion King. And Lion King may well be a odd example in terms of spirituality, but it is something which a lot of people are aware of in terms of modern lion symbology. So here we have some very different veins of quotes that people have associated with lion imagery. Oddly enough, a lot of the lion quotes seem ironically more about pride than courage. Pride being a group of lions. But there you go. And particularly, lions must not concern themselves with the opinions of sheep. Can that be seen as more of an egotistical, prideful concept than something that really is going to endeavour to help us along our path? Whereas I'd rather beat your lion, I'd rather live one day as a lion, that's a more worthwhile path than being a sheep, is a different approach. It still has an edge of the prideful about it, and an edge of the superior about it, but you can start to glean a bit more understanding from that idea rather than I don't care about the opinions of sheep. And I think that the lion in its balance shows us the two sides of this prideful coin. The lion seems to show an inner reflection of where an individual is in terms of accepting spiritual messages. For my part, it seems to bring up the ideas that nobility is one thing, prideful disdain is another, sovereignty is one thing, dominion over others is another. Courage is not the absence of fear, strength is not brutality. And therefore, for me, at least, it's talking about self-empowerment. That self-empowerment should be a personal, inward quest. And lions are quite frequently associated with questing and guarding and doorways, as we discussed. It's definitely an energy of action. Solar energies often are, although in this context we can see that solar energies are not separate from lunar energies, and one must exist with the other, and it is the balance of the sort of solar physical action, the warrior energy, with the lunar energy, with the mysteries, with the balance of self and subconscious thoughts and dream interpretation, and figuring out who you are on that level as well as in the physical realm. It's a balance of personal and questing within self without becoming entrapped in the prideful disdain for another or over others. It's the acceptance of the courage to do what is right on your own terms without thinking that this somehow makes you better or able to judge over other people's spiritual paths and how they walk it. And that really is the difference between the idea of sovereignty and dominion. The need to control over others rather than have the courage to accept the quest of who you are, of pushing the boundaries of how to be the better person, and that is pushing into personal transformation energy. I found the whole thing really fascinating, as it's not, lions in particular aren't something that immediately come to mind when you're thinking of, I follow the Celtic path, but you don't really consider lions as being a big part of it. But when you look into the mythology and then this sort of symbology as well, it becomes this fascinating inward personal quest of going inward into yourself and balancing all those elements within yourself and searching for the strength that you know that you need to take the next step on your journey. So that has been me for lion spirituality. We may well do some magic spell work with this as well following. Many blessings.